I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for participating. So today we're going to walk through the TikTok privacy policy line by line, and I'm going to help you understand what you're actually agreeing to and where the real risk and choices really live. First, I need you all to understand one thing. When you hit agree, you're signing a contract. This is not just with TikTok, but with all apps that you use. They all have terms of use and privacy policies that you have to agree to in order to use the platform. So what we're going to do today should be a regular activity that you do. So you're not making misinformed decisions, that you're completely informed. So let's get started. I have on the screen the privacy policy for TikTok. This first section is who the policy applies to. It says this privacy policy applies to TikTok services. Now this applies anywhere, everywhere TikTok touches you as an individual, not just the app, and we'll get into that in more detail. But this policy doesn't just apply to the app that's on your phone. It applies to TikTok websites, software, the TikTok ad network, and any device or platform that links to this policy. This means even if you don't post, even if you don't have an account, TikTok may still process data about you if you appear in content, interact with ads, or just browse embedded TikTok features. This is how non-TikTok users get pulled into the platform ecosystem. Next, who is actually operating the service? This says the services are operated by TikTok USD Joint Venture LLC. This is important in light of the US ownership shift that are currently in the headlines. TikTok is telling you who the legal operator is for US services. This matters for jurisdiction, law enforcement access, and regulatory oversight, but it does not mean all data suddenly stays in the US. So, heading off the information we collect section, this provides 3 ways TikTok collects data. This is the backbone of the policy. There are 3 buckets: information you provide, automatically collected information, and information from other sources. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this: the TikTok collects data in 3 ways, and only one of them requires you to type anything. So the first way is the information you knowingly give TikTok. You create an account, you're posting a video, you're sending a message, you're filing or filling out a form or responding to a survey. The second way is quieter. So TikTok automatically collects data every time you use the app: how long you've watched, what you replayed, what you skipped, when you pause, what device you're on, where you're roughly located, unless you give precise, and how you move through the platform. You don't have to click submit for any of that to happen. It just happens by being present on the app. And the third way is the one most people never really think about. Now, TikTok receives information about you from other sources. And when I say different sources, I'm talking about advertisers, from other websites and apps, from sellers, from payment providers, and even public or governmental sources. That means TikTok can learn things about you even when you're not actively using the app. So when people ask, what data did I give them? The better question is, what data was learned, inferred, or shared about me without me ever typing a word? This is the shift people need to understand. Privacy today isn't just about what you say, it's about what systems can observe, connect, and predict about you. Okay, this next section, information you provide. I'll walk through each data category. So of course, account information, user content, it's even drafts and pre-drafts when it comes to user content, messages, AI interactions, clipboard access when you choose different features, purchases, contacts with permission, of course, your contacts, and verification information, surveys, promotions, events. One line that deserves this attention of yours is the TikTok may collect content before you post it. Okay, that's really critical. Um, that means drafts, preloads, pre-uploads, and content you never publish can still be processed for things like effect, captions, and recommendations. This paragraph right here on sensitive personal information is very important. And this is what's making the headlines right now. When people saw language about sexual orientation, immigration status, or mental health, they kind of freaked out, asking questions like, why does TikTok need to know that about me? Right? It's important to know that TikTok is not asking you to fill out a form that says, please check your immigration status or select your mental health diagnosis. That's not how this works. Let me give you a scenario. So imagine a teenager posting a video about feeling anxious before school, right? That's a mental health. Or a creator talking openly about navigating life as LGBTQ plus, or a family documenting their immigration journey, right? None of that feels like data collection. It feels just like expression and sharing. But from a systems perspective, that expression becomes information. The policy is saying three things. First, users may voluntarily share sensitive information in videos, captions, comments, and surveys. Second, platforms may process that information when it appears in content because content has to be analyzed to function, to be moderated, recommended, or even monetized. And third, and most importantly, systems can infer sensitive attributes about you from behavior, even if you never say them explicitly. That's why sensitive data is considered high risk, not because platforms wake up intending harm, but because when sensitive data is misused, exposed, or compelled, the consequences impact real life. Discrimination doesn't live in an app, right? It's real life. Profiling is not just on your screen. And once sensitive data exists, you can't easily take it back. This is why inference matters. Sometimes inference is often more important than disclosure or sharing. You don't have to say something out loud for a system to learn it. Your pauses, your rewatches, the content you linger on, when you're scrolling late at night, those patterns can tell a story you never intended to tell. And that's about understanding how these platforms work so you can participate with intention and being fully informed. So this next section on where most of the data actually comes from, right? What's being collected, the automatic collection. And this one surprises most people. This is information that you don't type, you don't upload it, you don't always realize it's happening. And it's the largest data bucket in the entire policy. To make this easier to understand, I'm going to break this into 4 simple buckets. First, your usage behavior. This is how you move through the app. TikTok can see how long you watch, what you replay, what you skip, when you pause, and what you linger on. This is how the platform learns what holds your attention, not what you say you like, but what your behavior shows. Okay? Now, second, The second bucket is device and technical data. This includes information about your phone, your operating system, your network, your screen, and how the app interacts with your device. You're not telling TikTok this information, it comes along when you use the app. And third, location data. This can be approximate or precise location depending on your settings. Even without your GPS turned on, signals like IP addresses or network information can still give a rough sense of where you are. And this is the biggest one, at least from my perspective, which is the fourth bucket, biometric and content features. This is where TikTok may analyze your face, your voice, objects around you, and scenery in the video to make features work, may make recommended content, or moderate the platform. Now, TikTok may collect biometric identifiers like face prints or voice prints from your content. And this matters because unlike a password, biometric data cannot be changed. You can't go and change your face. You can't go and change your voice. That's who you are. So once it exists, it exists. Okay. Now we get to the part most people never think about. And that's information from other sources right here. This is where people assume, well, if I'm not posting much, they don't really know much about me, right? But the reality is that TikTok doesn't learn about you only from what you do inside the app. It also learns from the world around the app. Like I said earlier, advertisers, websites you visit, purchases you make, apps you use, sellers you interact with. Think of it like a credit report, okay? You don't have to call the credit bureaus every day for your credit profile to change. Your activity and all the places that you have activity, like where you pay a bill or open a credit card, or if you have a missing payment, those all update your profile automatically. Social platforms work the same exact way. So even on the days you don't post, even when you're barely scrolling, even when you think you're being low key, the profile still grows. Not because you're oversharing, but because data doesn't live in one place anymore. It travels. And silence doesn't make you invisible. It just means that learning happens somewhere else. Okay? This next section on how we use your information. People always ask, okay, well, but what are they actually doing with this information, right? So TikTok lists a lot of reasonable purposes. They say running the service, making the recommendations work, keeping the platform safe, showing ads. None of that should shock anyone, right? But there is one line I always slow down on, and that is to infer additional information about you. Okay. Think of this like a streaming service learning what shows you like. At first, it seems obvious you watch a comedy, so it suggests another comedy. Over time, it gets deeper. It learns when you watch, what mood you're in, what you come back to when you're tired, stressed, or bored, right? That's where long-term risk lives, not in the post you just did, but in tomorrow's prediction. Data isn't just about what happened. It's about what a system believes will happen next. Now, the profiling statement, the statement right here, we do not engage in profiling which results in legal or similarly significant effects. This sentence right here trips people up. So let me be very, very clear. This does not mean that TikTok doesn't profile users. It means that TikTok is saying their profiling doesn't cross a specific legal line. Things like denying you credit, housing, or employment, right? That's the legal line. They can't do that. But the distinction people miss is influence. Influence is not the same as legal effect. A platform can shape what you see, what you feel, what you believe, and what you buy without ever triggering a legal threshold. Just because something isn't legally significant, it doesn't mean it isn't personally impactful. Okay. So now we get into this sharing section. This is where trust matters. What they say matters, and what they do matters, right? TikTok shares data with service providers. They share it with advertisers, analytics partners, sellers, corporate affiliates, and sometimes with law enforcement or the public, depending on your settings, of course. None of this is unusual. All that's pretty standard in the tech world. But there's one category I always tell people to pay attention to. In connection with a sale, merger, or other business transfer. And the reason is because data, all of that data that you're giving to these platforms and TikTok specifically is an asset. You have to think of it as value. Data is an asset. Now, just like buildings, contracts, or intellectual property, and when companies change hands, right, assets move, your data doesn't get a vote in that process. That doesn't mean something bad will happen, but it does mean continuity isn't guaranteed, right? So this next section, I want to jump to your rights and choices, actually, because I think this is a very important section. This is the part where people either feel empowered or overwhelmed, right? You do have rights, but they're not automatic. Think of this like a gym membership. Having access doesn't mean anything if you never show up, right? Same thing. You have these rights, but you don't use them. So, they just sit there. I think it's important for you to understand, especially if you're in a state that has consumer privacy laws, you have rights. And exercising privacy means, more than just adjusting things on the app. And I'll get into that in a second, but there are things you can do right now in your app to manage your privacy. You can adjust your settings. You can manage ad preferences. You can request a copy of your data. And I don't know if people realize that they can do that. As you can ask for deletion when appropriate. You can also understand what you give up when you turn off cookies or tracking. It has to be participatory. Privacy is not just given, you have to choose and you have to make the decisions. If you don't engage, the defaults decide for you, right? Okay. Let me get to this section here, the data security and retention. Now, TikTok has been very honest in this section, and I appreciate that as a privacy attorney. No system is 100% secure, none. And how long your data is kept depends on things like whether your account is active, the legal and regulatory obligations, the business needs. But once data exists, control is not absolute, okay? It becomes a negotiation between convenience, law, and risk. So that's the reality across the entire digital world. This next section, really quickly, parents, come lean in. It's very important for you to hear this one. This section is especially important for you all. There are stricter rules for children under 13 and additional rights for teens. So the part that often gets missed is the tools exist, but they don't work if you don't use them. In digital spaces, silence, again, is treated as consent. If you don't opt out, then it's turned on. Okay. So if you're a parent, your involvement matters more than any policy language. Okay. So I'm just going to end this right here, but I think the most important sections have been addressed. Like, we walked through many elements of this policy. One thing you need to know is that these policies are not evil, and it isn't unique. It's just very, very powerful. And that power deserves your attention. Policies don't matter in a viral moment. Like, it's not right now what's happening with TikTok and the exchange of hands and ownership and the changes to the policy. It's a viral moment right now, but it's important to understand what it says. The quieter months and the years thereafter, you still need to pay attention, because these policies change, and it gives those companies power. If they say that they're going to do these things, you read it and agree to it, you are agreeing to allow for them to collect and use and share your data in the way that they have provided in this policy. So once you understand how these systems work, you stop being surprised and you start being intentional. You start being informed. That's the work. That's the point, right? And that's why I wanted to walk through this one with you together so that you are more informed. Thanks for joining my live. And if you're watching this back, thank you for the time.